Welcome to the LifePro podcast, where today I have the pleasure of having Terry Tucker, who is the founder of Motivational Check LLC and author of Sustainable Excellence. Today's topic is the four truths, which I'm excited to delve deep into your story today and to hear about these four truths, because we had a chance to chat about how remarkable your life has been and all the things that you've been through. But before we get into that, Terry, welcome to the show and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, Oma, thanks for having me on. I am really looking forward to talking with you today. I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version here. Born and raised on the south side of Chicago, oldest of three boys. You can't tell this from my voice or looking at me, but I'm 6'8" tall, and I actually went to college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina on a basketball scholarship. When I graduated from college, I moved home to find a job. I was actually the first person in my family to graduate from college, and I was all set to make my mark on the world with my newly obtained business administration degree, and look back now and realize I knew absolutely nothing about business just because I had a degree. Fortunately, I was able to find that first job in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, in their marketing department. That was the good news. The bad news was I lived with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mother care for my father and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. Professionally, as I said, started out at Wendy's, moved to hospital administration after that. Then I made a major pivot in my life and became a police officer. And part of my law enforcement career, I was a SWAT team hostage negotiator. After law enforcement, I started a school security consulting business, coached girls high school basketball, became an author in 2020, but for the last 11 years have been battling this rare form of cancer. And I guess just to round it out, my wife and I have been married for 30 years. We have one child, a daughter. She's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and is an officer in the new branch of the military, the Space Force.
Wow. You've certainly lived a remarkable life, and there's so many dimensions to all your experiences. And I'm excited to delve deep into our topic of the four truths. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit more about sustainable excellence and why you chose to write that book.
Yeah, Sustainable Excellence was really a book born out of two conversations that I had. One was with a former player that I had coached in high school who had moved to the area in Colorado where my wife and I live with her fiance, and the four of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her after dinner that I was excited that she was living close and I could watch her find and live her purpose. She got real quiet for a while. Then she looked at me and she said, "Well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is?" I said, "I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about, finding the reason you were put on the face of this earth, using your unique gifts and talents, and living that reason." So that was one conversation. And then I had a young man reach out to me on social media and asked me what I thought were the most important things he should learn, not to just be successful in his job or in business, but to be successful in life. And I didn't want to give them that, get up early, work hard, help others. I didn't want to give them that. I mean, not that those aren't important, they are, but I wanted to see if I could go deeper with them. So I spent some time and was taking notes and sort of had these 10 thoughts, these 10 ideas, these 10 principles. And so I sent them to him. And then I stepped back and I was like, well, I got a life story that fits underneath this principle, or I know somebody whose life emulates that principle. So literally, I had my leg amputated as a result of my cancer journey. And I had a 3 or 4 month period where I was healing after that amputation. And I sat down at the computer every day and I built stories, and they're real stories about real people underneath each of the principles. And that's how sustainable excellence, the 10 principles to leading your uncommon and extraordinary life, came to be.
That's phenomenal. So getting to our topic, we talked about, when we first talked, we talked about your four truths. So tell us what are your four truths?
So the four truths, I have them here on a Post-it notes. So I see them multiple times every day, so they constantly get reinforced in my mind, and they're just one sentence each. So here they are. The first one is control your mind, or your mind is going to control you. The second one is embrace the pain and the difficulty that we all experience in life, and use that pain and difficulty to make you a stronger and more resilient individual. The third one I look at kind of as a legacy type of truth, and it's this: what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of other people. And then the fourth one, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. As long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And I refer to the four truths kind of as the bedrock of my soul. I think they're just a good place to be able to start to try to build a quality life off of.
Yeah. And speaking about your journey and your battle with cancer, how did battling 11 years change your life and your perspective?
Yeah, when I found out I had cancer, I was just like everybody else. I was a husband, I was a dad, I was coaching basketball, I had my own company and that. And I had this incredibly rare form of melanoma that appeared on the bottom of my foot. And, I remember initially, I think I went through all the stages that we would associate with grief. First it was, I can't possibly have cancer. I've done everything right in my life. I've eaten right. I've gone to the doctor for a physical every year. I've exercised. I don't abuse drugs or alcohol. And then you get to a point where I was mad. It was like, I can't possibly have cancer. I've done everything right in my life, And then there was sort of a bargaining with God. Our daughter was in high school when I got cancer. And it was, look, just let me live long enough to see her graduate from high school. And then I got a little down, little depressed. And then I got to a point where it was like, this sucks, but I'm going to have to embrace the suck, for lack of a better word. I don't like these cards that I've been dealt, but I'm going to have to deal with this the best way I can. When I was diagnosed, the form of melanoma I had was a death sentence. All they could give me was, we can cut it out. Other than that, we have no drugs, we have no medicines we can give you, and you'll be lucky to live 2 years. And it's been 11 years now. So I don't put a lot of stock in doctors who tell, people, oh, you only got 6 months or stuff like that. Doctors don't know you. They don't know that your kid's getting married next year. They don't know that you want to be at that event, or it's going to be your 25th wedding anniversary and you want to celebrate that with your spouse. So there's so much that goes into just the physical part of having a disease like that. So a lot of things went through my mind, but then you just kind of, at least I did, kind of hunker down and realize that, all right, I got to fight this and I've got to do it the best way I can. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm not. I don't have all the answers, but the four truths are something that have definitely, I think, helped me. And I, like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I offer them to people as, here, maybe it's something that'll work for you depending on what you're going through.
Yeah. And obviously, you went through something serious, and we talked about this offline recently. I went through a battle of shingles, and I've kind of had to experience pain. To my extent, maybe it's tolerable, but how do you, we talked about this in your four truths. How do you define pain? What does that mean to you?
I think pain is any kind of a signal that your body, your mind, your emotions, your soul sends to you to say, hey, something's not right here. Something needs to be checked out or looked at or examined and maybe changed in your life. So, we all think of pain as something physical. I broke my leg hurts, or I had surgery, this incision is bothering me, and things like that. Or you had shingles, I'm feeling that pain associated with that. So yeah, we think of it as physical pain, but I also think it's emotional pain, it's psychological pain, it's spiritual pain, and things like that. I don't think it's just limited to our actual bodies.
And so what you're saying is we shouldn't try to control the pain by subduing the results. We should try to get to the bottom of the origination of the pain and alleviate the pain.
I think it depends on the type of pain. The psychological part, I gave you the four truths, and people have asked me, is one of those truths more important than the other? And I used to say, no, I think they're all equally important. But the more I read, the more I learn. I think the first one of controlling your mind, or your mind is going to control you, really is the most important. Because, when you're, especially with physical pain, when you're dealing with physical pain, you've got to get on top of that right away, or that pain is going to lead you to a dark and ugly place where the demons, so to speak, lurk. And you're not going to be able to get past that. And so, and I'm not saying I'm some Superman. I am certainly not. But I realize I know what to expect with my treatments now and things like that. And I know there's a point where it's like, you know what? I don't want to do this, but I know I'm going to have to. And I got to get on top of this, because if I don't get on top of my brain's going to get on top of me. And it's going to be a very difficult journey to go through that treatment.
Understood. Yeah. So you spoke of, in your truths, you spoke of, we talked about purpose, finding purpose in life, and to extent maybe leaving a legacy. How important do you think that is for all of us to be able to leave a footprint on future generations or on society in general? Is that vital for all of us to achieve?
I think it depends on how you define legacy. I was reading an article, and I'm trying to remember where it was, but I was actually depressed when I finished reading it. This guy was talking about, he gave names of people, and I had no idea who these people were, but they were 19th century, Oscar winners, or famous people that at that time that lived would have known who those people were. Now 100 years later, or I have no idea who that person is. These were people that made a difference, or at least thought by other people's standards that they were making a difference. So I don't, legacy, I think, is important in the lives that we touch. Now, are we going to find the cure for cancer? Are we going to, develop, I don't know, space travel, to other planets, and, warp drives like Star Trek or something like that? Most of us, no, we're not going to have any involvement in that at all. But I do think I guess it's just a different way of looking at life. And let me kind of give you this example. We seem to think that we are born empty, and that when we finish and we get out of school and we kind of get into life, whatever that is, that our job is to fill ourselves up. I got to get a good education, I got to get a good job, make a lot of money, drive a nice car, have a nice wife, a nice family, and we take all this stuff in, and we fill ourselves up. And by doing that, that is somehow going to make us fulfilled. That is going to be our legacy, our children, and what we've done. But what I found is that it's just the opposite. We're not born empty. We're born full. We're born with everything we need to be successful in our lives already inside of us. We just need to find that and pull it out and use it to our benefit. And so it's not so much what I can get as much as it is what I can give, in terms of, being born full. Our responsibility, I think, should be to empty ourselves out in our lifetime, to, for the betterment, certainly of ourselves, but of our families, of our communities, of our businesses, of our God, whatever it is that you believe. And if you look at it that way, I mean, you probably know a lot of people. I know a lot of people that by most standards would say that's a successful person. They have more money than they're ever going to need. They have multiple homes. They have all this stuff. But in a lot of cases, they're miserable. They're not happy people. Whereas the people who say, okay, I have certain gifts, I have certain talents, I'm going to empty those out for the betterment of the people that I come in contact with. That to me is more of an important legacy than, leaving, putting your name on a school building, or, having somebody name a road after you or something like that.
What do you say to those people listening that, like you said, they have all the material things they need, but they feel empty inside? What action could they take to change their lives?
I guess let me sort of tell you a story. I don't want any of your listeners to think that I'm like Superman. You're looking at me right now. There's no S on my chest. I do not have a cape and fly around with magical powers. During my cancer treatments, I have bad days. I get down, I cry, feel sorry for myself. But when I do, I find that I'm looking inward. I'm looking internally. And I find a real simple way to get out of that funk, so to speak, to make a difference, is to go find somebody else to make a difference in their life. Somebody, I'm at the hospital every 3 weeks for my treatment. I can always find people that, hey, how you doing? Even if it's a kind word, or you want to have a cup of coffee, or do you want to talk? Now all of a sudden my focus is not on me and how bad I'm feeling, or whether it's psychological feeling or physical feeling. It's now I'm trying to make a difference. I'm trying to make a positive difference, a connection in someone else's life. And I think that's the big thing, connection. I mean, I think if COVID taught us anything, it's the realization that we need each other. We need to be together. We need to interact with people. And, I mean, it's great, work-life balance, working from home and all that kind of stuff. But look at all the mental illness, look at all the suicides, look at the drug and alcohol issues that occurred because of COVID, because we weren't together. So I think we kind of need to be with each other. And if you do that, I think you can leave a legacy. You can touch another human being in a positive way.
Yeah, sometimes we just need to take a step back and just realize that how much we need each other and how much we have to give. And I love your perspective on, being born full. And I think that gives a great idea and sense of like how fortunate a lot of us are. And we need to be more grateful and put out more positivity in the world rather than worry about what we don't have, because those material things will not give us satisfaction. So I appreciate that. So going back a little bit, further to your fight for cancer, it was, or a lot of different, one of your truths was about quitting. Quitting is an easy way out. Like, it's easier just to give up than to fight. Fighting is hard. How did you stay strong? How do we stay strong when we're battling, we're all battling our own demons in a way.
Oh, absolutely. And most of us don't know the demons that other people are battling. I remember when I went to college, the Citadel is a military college. And I remember one year we had a president of the college by the name of Admiral James Stockdale. And Stockdale had been a fighter pilot during the Vietnam War, had been shot down during a mission over North Vietnam, and spent 8 years as a prisoner of war. And I did not spend a lot of time around Admiral Stockdale, but I remember being at an event one time where somebody asked him, who were the people that survived that brutality, that abuse, that torture? And he said, let me tell you who didn't survive. He said, it wasn't the big, strong, tough guys that thought that they could handle any amount of abuse or torture. And this one was kind of interesting too. He said, it wasn't even the optimists. These were the people that thought they would be either rescued or let go by Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter, and Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter would come and go, and they wouldn't be released, and those people would die of a broken heart. He said the people that survived were the people that understood what they could control and controlled it, which according to him, as a prisoner of war, he said basically for us, it was our breathing and the thoughts in our mind. Everything else was at the discretion of the enemy. When we ate, when we slept, when we were tortured, when we got mail, when we got extras, everything else was at the discretion of somebody else. Now, most of us are not prisoners of war or prisoners in any way, so we have a little bit more ability to control things. But I think where the problem and the anxiety comes in is people try to control things that are outside of their purview, that are outside of what they can control, and that produces anxiety and stress, and that manifests itself in physical symptoms and things like that. So I guess I would say understand what you can control and control it. And I think if you do that, things will be much better all the way around for you.
And learn to react properly to the things you can't control.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's hard. I would have to say, I mean, I've had stretches of time where I just feel like constantly I'm having to deal with problems in various parts of my life, and it compounds, and it gets to a point where I try to stay calm, but I break at times. And I try to remember that. I try to remember this is nothing I can control. This is something I just have to deal with. And if it's not the end of the world, if I'm still healthy, if I'm still breathing, then I can carry on and I can move on, and I can, good will come with the bad eventually. And just staying positive and manifesting the positive. Like, I'm a firm believer of that, firm believer of positive energy, and just we're all having to deal with problems. So it's if sometimes it feels like the world is revolving around us, but we're all going through the similar battles and our own problems.
We are. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when I was growing up in Chicago, there was a basketball coach at Indiana University by the name of Bobby Knight.
Yeah.
And Knight had a quote that went, mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. So here's this great coach. You can say what you want about his personality, but a great coach teaching premier athletes to be excellent basketball players on the court. But what he was really saying with that quote is that your mind or your mindset is 4 times more important than anything your physical body's going to do in terms of your overall success. Right. And I always tell people, we all talk to ourselves, whether we like to believe it or not. We all have this sort of inner dialogue. And I always tell people to be very careful with that dialogue, because we all become what we think. So if, like you say, if you're thinking, oh, this is terrible and everything's overwhelming and blah, 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 eventually, you're hardwiring your brain to think this is terrible, as opposed to, this is bad, but what can I learn from this? How can I grow? How is this going to make me a better human being? It's just a different way of approaching the same set of facts.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that 100%. It's just about having the right mindset and being positive, and don't let situations kind of bring you down. You bring up basketball, so I'm a huge basketball fan, grew up a big Laker fan. Basketball was always my life. So the fact that you play D1, I mean, that's amazing. That was always my dream, to be able to play. Obviously I was 5'9", 5'10", so I couldn't get the skills to develop. But what did you learn as a basketball player, as Division I player, and how did that help set the foundation for the rest of your life?
That's a great question. And I was incredibly fortunate to be able to play Division I basketball. I mean, the odds of doing that are so ridiculously against most people. But I think what team sports taught me, I started playing basketball when I was 9 years old and played all the way up until I graduated from college at 21. And I think what team sports, at least for me, it was sports. I think it can be whatever team you're on. What it taught me was the importance of being part of something that's bigger than yourself. You realize on a team that if you don't do your job, not only do you let yourself down, but you let your teammates down, your coaches down, your fans down, your parents down, etc. And if you think about it, the biggest team game that we all play is this game of life. And so I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned. Certainly you learn time management skills, you learn how to be a good teammate, you learn how to lose, you learn how to be coachable. I mean, all the things that being part of a team that really kids can, especially, certainly when you start playing at the college level and the professional level, it's a little bit different, but I think that's what's so important about playing sports is, it's sort of a microcosm of life, the good, the bad, everything gets played out, in one afternoon or one game or whatever. And you realize how to handle those things. How do I handle winning? How do I handle losing? Do I know how to win? Do I know how to lose? Those are all things that we need to learn, that hopefully those lessons will carry over into our lives.
Yeah, I definitely echo those sentiments. I've had the pleasure of coaching my son's 10-year-old or 8 to 9-year-old YMCA league, and I've really been able to see the progression of the kids' maturity and the ability for especially at a young age, they develop these skills so much faster than we do as adults, and being able to comprehend the meaning of teamwork and being in the right position at the right time and understanding instruction and just really working together towards the path of a common goal. It's been very gratifying as a parent and a coach for them. And it's, something I've been doing. I think it's now 8 seasons in a row. Nice. And, we've had some success the last few seasons. We've won the championship. So, it's really helped me as an individual to just really have that bond with my son and his teammates. So I definitely see that in fruition as far as everything that you're talking about. And I can imagine on a college level, it's just on another level, but maybe a little bit more serious. But on a macro level, these younger kids who, some of them come in with no discipline at all and are now listening and paying attention, and to see that progress, it's astonishing.
Yeah. And I think it's important for parents to, you see parents, you see all these videos of parents, yelling at referees, at a grade school basketball game and, and yelling at the coach and stuff like that. I'm like, really? These kids are, that are reffing are making $12 an hour on a Sunday morning to the coach is giving up his time or her time, and you're yelling at him. If you want to, if you're yelling at him, you think you can do better, you go coach the team or something like that. I used to always tell my parents in high school that, like, look, I played in college. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. I promise you that if you don't tell me how to do my job, I won't come to your office and tell you how to do your job. So.
Yeah. I have to admit, I've gotten my share of fights with referees, but I've learned, I think the last situation I got really upset and the referee didn't talk to me, and I was just trying to talk to him, and he taught me a lesson. He basically told me, like, I'm doing the best that I can here.
Right.
And you're yelling at me. And I just, I realized that there was no benefit in me fighting, and it was being infectious to the kids. They started arguing. So now I've learned to not only calm down, but try to make sure that our kids are calming down and just kind of keeping their head in the game, and everybody's doing the best that they can. And however the chips fall, we do our best, going back to, controlling what you can control, right? Like, I can't control his actions, but I can live with the impact and take it with stride.
Oh, I do. I used to ask my players, like, how many fouls do you get during a game? And they're like, you get 5. I said, no, you get 3, because the referee's going to have a bad day and he's going to make a bad call that, you didn't foul the person. And then you're going to do something stupid, that you shouldn't have done. So really you only get 3 fouls. And when they start to look at it that way, it's like, okay, I want to concentrate on the fundamentals. I want to understand what coach is telling me and try to do that. And that's part of being coachable. That's, and so many kids today, as you know, as a coach, are not coachable.
Yeah. So who's your favorite basketball player of all time?
I would have to say it's Michael Jordan. I played against Jordan his freshman year in college. Wow. My senior year was the year they won the national championship.
Yeah.
A quick funny story. Fast forward like 20 years later, my youngest brother is a basketball coach in Chicago and coached Michael Jordan's 2 sons. And he said, one day we're at practice and it's toward the end of practice and I'm teaching the kids to play, and I look up and nobody's paying attention. And so I look where the kids are looking, which was over by the door. And Jordan had come into the gym as a dad to pick his kids up and take them home after practice. And my brother looked at him and said, hey, Michael, you're a little bit of a distraction. Would you mind stepping out in the hall until practice is over? And Jordan and his wife are incredibly gracious people. And he said, sure, coach, no problem. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be a distraction. He said, I'll wait out in the hall. My brother thought later, I'm probably the only coach in the history of basketball that's ever kicked Michael Jordan out of practice. So.
I would have been like, hey, Mike, come over here.
Yeah, exactly. Teach me something.
Well, I definitely, I admire Jordan. I've always been a Magic Johnson fan. And I grew up, not only because I'm in LA, but like for me, Magic was the epitome of the perfect teammate, because he lifted his teammates up to their potential. He was always positive. He always wanted the best. And I feel like everybody that played with Magic was a better player because of it. And I always wanted to instill that same philosophy, not only in basketball, but in life, and even with this podcast, like, I'm just, if I can improve somebody's life just a little bit, even one person, I've done my job. And that's the platform that, we're here to talk about. One last thing before we wrap this up, I'm sure a lot of people are interested in your experience with the SWAT team and working as a hostage negotiator. What was the main lesson for you going through that?
Yeah, that's, people always ask me about that. And when you're doing hostage negotiation, the thing that, I know all this stuff, but then when it comes to applying it to, like, your kids, the wild card is the emotion, and it's like, and so, yes, I know all this stuff. And then I would totally be an idiot as a dad and do something that I'm like, you shouldn't have done that. I guess a couple things. One is how we communicate. They gave us a formula fairly early on in our training, and the formula was 7-38-55, and it had to do with how we communicate with each other. 7% of how we communicate are the words that we use. 38% of it was the tone of voice that we used with those words, and then 55% of it was our body language and facial expressions. So if you think about a police officer, about 99% of what we did was face-to-face with another human being. So, if I'm talking to you and, you're kind of looking around, I'm like, oh, well, maybe he's thinking about running or something like that. Or, if you're standing there balling up your fists, maybe I think you want to fight me. And I can see that. And I can, act accordingly. I can handcuff you. I can sit you down. I can put you in my car, whatever's appropriate. But as negotiators, we didn't have that 55%. We were not with the individual, because we could be blocks away on the phone. We could be behind a locked door, whatever it was. And so we didn't have, I may say something and I didn't see, the person kind of roll their eyes like, oh, what an idiot. I can't believe he said, so we didn't have that luxury. So that was one thing, realizing how your body language really affects your communication. And the other thing was the importance of listening. And I know your audience is probably gonna be like, of course, idiot, listening is very important. But no, what the difference between listening to respond versus listening to understand. It's like, all right, Omen, hurry up, say what you're going to say because I want to get my 2 cents in. That's listening to respond versus, okay, Omen, I hear what you're saying. I may agree with you. I may not agree with you, but help me to understand where you're coming from. Help me to understand that. And now all of a sudden we're having a dialogue. Again, what we were talking about earlier, we're connecting. Yeah. And if you can do that, I think today in the world we're spending all this time yelling at each other. And when you're yelling at me and I'm yelling at you, neither one of us can understand what the other person is saying, let alone where the other person's coming from. So those are 2 things that I learned. I could go on for hours about the other things, but those are 2 big things that I learned.
So it really comes down to respecting the person you're talking to, because if you value their perspective, even if you differ for an opinion, keeping that respect is what really helps you move forward.
It does. I mean, another thing we learned was what was called tactical empathy, which was help me to understand where you're coming from, not agree with it. I mean, you may have killed 3 people. I'm not going to agree with what you did, but help me to understand where you're coming from. Because I mean, the overarching thing as a negotiator, whether it's boss, subordinate, parent, child, husband, wife, it's all about creating trust. And let's face it, if you're talking to me and you're surrounded by the police, you're probably having the worst day of your life. And I don't know you and you don't know me. And we're trying to connect on some level so that I can get you out safely. So it was a lot of very traumatic in a lot of ways, and dealing with people that were very much in crisis. And about 90% of the time we were successful getting people out. But about 10% of the time, the people decided that, like I said, if we're going after a homicide suspect and the guy knows that he's caught, it's like, now I'm not going to spend the rest of my life in prison. And they would decide to commit suicide. And while that was always tragic, I knew I did the best I could to try to get them out safely.
Going back to what we said before, doing the best that you can. And, the 4 truths for me have been very powerful. And I hope that a lot of people, I'm sure it'll resonate with a lot of people and hopefully impact their lives moving forward. As you know, LifePro podcast is about, concept is everything in life comes with a manual except for life itself. And that's what we're trying to do here is provide a platform where we're guiding people on ways how we can add value to your life. One thing that I ask everybody is, what is the one single thing you want to teach the world?
I guess I'll give you this lesson in the form of a story. I had a nurse recently ask me what it was like. I had my foot amputated in 2018 and my leg amputated in 2020. She asked me what it was like to have those amputations. And I told her it certainly has not been easy. I'm still learning how to walk again. But what I did tell her was that cancer can take all my physical faculties, but cancer can't touch my mind, it can't touch my heart, and it can't touch my soul. And that's who I am. That's who you are. That's who everybody who's listening to us is. And we spend a great deal of time working on this house, this vessel that we call a body. And I'm not telling you, not to go to the gym or not to eat right or not to get enough rest. But what I am suggesting is maybe in addition to doing that, spend a little bit more time every day working on who you are, your heart, your mind, your soul, because this body, we all know it's going to die. We all know it's going to decay, but who we are, the heart, the mind, and the soul, those things are eternal. And maybe we should spend a little more time working on them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I do a lot of that. I try, and I could always do more. I could always do more, but it's really important for us to be present, understand, all the things that we can do to improve our lives and improve who we are, and make sure we're giving to others and putting that positivity out in the world. Was there a book that you read that might have had the biggest impact on your life?
I'm an avid reader. I was looking at this one. This is a book called Legacy, by a man by the name of James Kerr, and this man embedded with the New Zealand national rugby team, which by most accounts is the most successful sports franchise in any sport in any country of all times. And I couldn't put it down. I mean, if I opened it up, there would be like notes in the margin and underlines and highlights and stuff like that. So I would encourage anybody to go out and read the book Legacy.
Great. Looking forward to reading that myself. Thank you for suggesting that. It sounds remarkable. Last question for the day. How could people follow you or get in touch with you?
So I have a blog. It's called motivationalcheck.com. Every day I put up a new thought for the day. On Mondays, I put up the Monday morning motivational message. I have recommendations for books to read, videos to watch, and you can certainly leave me a message. And that's all at motivationalcheck.com.
I love that, Terry. I have to admit, you have, and no disrespect to my other guests, you have been my favorite guest so far. So
Thank you.
I feel honored to listen to your life story and all of your experiences. You're an inspiration to all of us. Thank you for all you do, and we're all fighting. So we appreciate leadership from you in all regards. Everything that you've done in your life. It's remarkable. I can't say I know many people that have experienced as much as you have. So I thank you
Well,
for your
thank you.
time.
I've been very lucky, and I appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I look forward to keep in touch with you.
I would love that. Thank you.
I remind everybody to please like, follow, and share. Help us spread the word. Have a good day, Terry.
You too.